start new. Assalamu alaikum. Alhamdulillah, nahmaduhu wa nasta'in wa nastaghfir wa nu'mini wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. Man yahdihillahu fala mudilla lahu wa man yudlil fala hadiya lahu. Wa nashhadu an la ilaha illallah wahdahu la sharika lahu wa nashhadu anna Muhammadan 'abduhu wa rasuluh. Amma ba'd. Today, inshallah ta'ala, this is about our physical health. So we can call this program where me and our expert, Dr. Nabeel Ahmed, so we are sitting apart, maintaining that social distance of 2 meters. So we wish to discuss 2-3 main areas. One of the area is that it will be a simple reflection on COVID-19, that what is happening, but not take too long. Yeah. So our main theme will be the physical health, and especially the diabetes, the heart problem, maybe people suffering from respiratory problems, asthma, and high blood pressure, and how they are coping in the lockdown, and how the Ramadan will be how can they sort of have this Ramadan sort of in the best possible way, despite some limitations, even to the medical access. Yeah. And the third thing is, we will reflect briefly on the Islamic perspective of the good health, and what the good health is, and what does our Quran and our Prophet has mentioned. So, all the viewers and the listeners, once again, Assalamu alaikum. We are live from Jamia Masjid and Islamic Center, Stoke Porges Lane in Slough. And let me introduce our main guest. And I'm grateful to you, Dr. Nabeel.
Thank you.
That you found time on Saturday. And I know that you've been very busy in Ealing Hospital, and you are not allowed to work from home. We can always fantasize the doctors can work from home, but it may never happen.
That's right.
Yeah. So Dr. Nabeel Ahmed has been to the Masjid before. He is consultant cardiologist in Ealing Hospital, and he is honorary clinical senior lecturer at Imperial College London. He has special interests in all kinds of heart problems, and especially the ischemic heart disease like angina, heart attack, and the stents and the angiograms and things like that. And he also has a lot of interests and knowledge, and he's been involved in research regarding diabetes mellitus, and hyperlipidemias, which mean people with the problem with the high cholesterol level and high triglyceride level, and high blood pressure, and also platelet function and dysfunction. He has over 20 years of clinical experience in clinical cardiology. He had been involved in international research projects on coronary artery disease and type 2 diabetes mellitus, and he closely worked with the Heart UK Cholesterol Charity, involved in public health education. And he's involved in public health education and regular media appearances and guest speaker in the mosque, schools, and Buddhist Vihara. You also been on Islam channel Urdu, and you also been on other TV channels in the past. So welcome, Dr. Nabeel. So before we move on to our main theme of the physical illnesses like diabetes, blood pressure, heart disease, and respiratory problems, and how do we cope in the lockdown. So before we start, because the reason we are here now today and having this distance is because of very unprecedented and unique and never imagined, never anticipated COVID-19. Let's start with that. Tell us something about that you've been in a hospital now working in the front line. So what are the main symptoms, and is there any treatment available yet or not? Let's start with that.
First of all, Assalamu alaikum to all the viewers, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here to join you this afternoon. And I think it's indeed an opportunity for me to share my experience and some of the things that I've learned over these years in my professional career as a cardiologist, as a clinician, as a physician. And so especially, I think this is a very good way of sharing our experience with our viewers, and especially in preparation of Ramadan, which is just around the corner. And so we are living in very unprecedented times, and this COVID-19 is one of the deadliest enemies it's an invisible enemy of mankind, and that is the worst enemy we have ever known. And I suspect, so you just asked that what are the symptoms and what treatments are available. I must start by saying that we are still trying to find a silver bullet that can actually combat this deadly virus. So it does not know any boundaries. It does not respect any ethnic backgrounds, whether you are rich or poor. It only recognizes that you are a human being, and it can attack, if you don't look after yourself and do not follow the guidelines, which are invariably consistent according to the environments in different parts of the world, and different cultures also obviously are involved. So this COVID-19, the very latest research from geneticists in Cambridge, what they have found that this virus was actually somewhere, so they have actually very nicely called these various, they have identified various strains of this virus, and they have called them as A, B, and C. So the A virus, which was, according to this research, which was actually just shared last week, and they are thinking that this A type was the one that was transmitted from the bat, probably, or some animals in Wuhan to the human beings. And in Wuhan, which is a big city in China, everybody knows. So that was type A. And then when it was transmitted to other human beings, they called it as type B. So then it spread around the world. And the virus that has been brought to Europe was called type C, which they have called as the daughter of type B. And that was actually transferred from Singapore to Europe, and now it has spread everywhere.
So medically, do we call those mutations, that they just change their form?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
And these viruses, these coronaviruses have been known to us since 1960s, and there have been certain pandemics in the past as well, but not to this extent. And I think we are puzzled, and we are working really hard to treat our patients. And there is wealth of information available on media, on every channel. Everybody's talking about the preventions, social distancing, and so on and so forth. So I'm sure everybody's aware that, the symptoms, the typical symptoms are like cough, which is persistent, consistent, and it's like dry cough. It begins like this. Then fever is very important, and then shortness of breath can follow later on. And then there are some atypical presentations, and especially the vulnerable group of population, which is the elderly population. And I'm sure that we are looking after our elderly very well as we speak, and we are trying. And so then there can be atypical presentations, for example, gastroenteritis, or so some other sort of very
loss of taste and smell has been
loss of smell,
fatigue, tiredness. They are also mentioned.
Tiredness, and all those sort of atypical symptoms follow. So until now, the treatment. Now coming to the treatment, once if someone has been unfortunate and gets this virus and gets infected, so I think then treatment is supported. They get into NHS hospitals here, and then they are admitted, and they start looking after them. And we run numerous tests, blood tests, and we look at inflammatory markers, we look at hematological markers. There have been so many discussions going on whether is there any set treatment. Actually, there is no treatment that fits all. So it is according to your comorbidities and your
immune system and other illnesses,
and so on and so
how
forth.
you're affected.
Absolutely.
Is this hydrochloroquine and antiretroviral medicine, which are used for HIV and AIDS virus, are these proven treatments or not really, or is the research being conducted on these?
I think there was a lot of media hype about these hydroxychloroquine and chloroquine, and many people have come up with wonderful theories and lots of knowledge around this subject. And so it was, until today, there is actually no clinically proven benefit from prevention perspective. But now we are actually in a very good trial which had been started by people in Oxford. It's called Recovery Trial, and pretty much every hospital in the UK where we are treating COVID-19 patients will be part of it. And very soon we will have data. That trial has 4 arms, and one of them is the hydroxychloroquine, the other one is the steroids, and then we have these antiviral drugs. So then the patients will be obviously, trial in these different groups. There is very strict inclusion-exclusion criteria, and it's not very easy to enroll these patients because of consenting issues. So I think we will have more information very soon. But then people have been talking about, for example, people from the subcontinent, because or areas where people get malaria. So normally they have been exposed to chloroquine or hydroxychloroquine at some point in their life. So what people are sort of proposing is that perhaps they are slightly resistant to this virus. And then very recently, another very important aspect has been discussed, and that is the BCG vaccine for tuberculosis, which is part of the health service in many parts of the world. And people have thought that, well, those individuals who have been exposed to this who had actually this BC.
And we all had, if we come from Pakistan, India, Sri Lanka, or Bangladesh, we all had that. Okay.
So probably they are more immune to this virus.
Well, that's why we're seeing not many deaths in that part of the world.
It could be one of the reasons.
It's very nominal as compared to China and Europe.
Absolutely.
Right, okay.
So this virus is very unforgiving. It attacks actually the respiratory system first, and then now we are learning about various aspects of this very deadly infection. It can affect the heart in the form of pericarditis, and it can also affect our other organs. And so we keep a very close eye on the blood counts and lymphocytes and the inflammatory markers, CRP and rest of it, and also the hematological markers. So I think we are learning as we are managing more and more patients.
Right, okay. Okay, let's move on to now the main topic of Ramadan and how our community is, managing in lockdowns. Before that, so you're not following any conspiracy theory, the 5G and AI and, infertility and mass vaccination. There are a lot of theories. We do not know what is truth and what is not. And for the public, it's impossible to find out what actually is the truth, but I believe the truth will be revealed sooner or later.
Yeah. So I would respond by saying, well, these days people have a lot of time on their hands, and they come up with all these funny ideas and these conspiracy theories and all that. But as a clinician, I still feel that it is an actual reality. This is a virus, and we have tests that confirm the presence of this virus. So and then these geneticists, which I just referred in the early part of this conversation, and many geneticists around the world are trying to come up with a vaccine which probably will obviously resolve lots of issues. And there's a lot of testing which is being recommended around the world. So definitely there is this presence of this virus. We
Is
cannot deny
real,
that.
you can't deny that.
So I think we should not pay too much attention and get unnecessarily stressed by these conspiracy theories. That's my personal point of view.
Okay, so let's now move on to our main theme. Fasting recently in contemporary research, starting from China to end of America and Australia, New Zealand, Europe, and the social scientists, everybody, and the gurus, and I think people following different faiths. So everybody has favored the fasting has benefits. So in Ramadan, so when we fast, so just give us just like a bullet points. What are the main physical benefits? We know the spiritual depends on the individual, how close you are to Allah, how how much faith you have got. That's not what we're talking. So what the physical benefits to the body? Where how does the body react to the fasting, deprivation of food and fluids?
I think first of all, I would like to congratulate everyone because Ramadan is just around the corner, and be prepared to fast, who can fast, who are healthy. So you very rightly said that, look, in the major religions in this world, fasting is obligatory, it's essential, and definitely no faith would like to kill their dear followers. They would definitely recommend a thing that is obviously, has benefits. So, in my very simple understanding of the effects, physical effects of Ramadan, it's like spring cleaning of your body. So basically, what happens? You detoxify yourself, and when we fast, our systems, all our GIT system, the first of all, gastrointestinal system, it takes rest, and then all our hormones in our body, they start having a balance, and then of course we start losing weight. That translates into huge health benefits on your heart, on your blood pressure, on your general well-being, and people become more alert because of the presence of more catecholamines, and actually, I must give you an example of a normal refrigerator and deep freezer. So what I'm trying to say here is that, look, whatever we eat is actually converted into glycogen or glucose and then glycogen, and stored in the form of glycogen in our body. That can be called as a refrigerator. And then, if we still have more, there's glucose and glycogen available, that is actually changed into fat. That's how we put on weight. Right. This is what happens in our body. So, in Ramadan, we start using our glycogen. We open our refrigerator and we straight away use our glycogen, and the levels start falling. But then a time comes in the later part of the Ramadan, it's for 1 month. Then we have to open our deep freezer as well, and then pull out some of the nice goodies and stuff that we have saved over there, and then use them up as well. So in that way, we start reducing weight, and we start getting the fruits of this, Ramadan.
Thank you very much. And I think it's also very well known that it also, in uncomplicated diabetes, which will come, so that is very well managed. The discipline in life is also, it comes back, and the sleep cycle is also regularized. And there are many studies done by the Muslim doctors and researchers that your immunity also improves, and if you are following and also worshipping. Okay, so let's sort of move on to the physical health now. Now people are in lockdown, which is not a very normal sort of thing. So how do people generally manage in a lockdown when the carers are there all the time, children are at home, people have illnesses and sicknesses, and they want to make sure the medicines are available? So generally, what would you say, where do we start? Because this may be the first ever time in the lives of the people of the world who are living it now, so they will be fasting and not allowed to go out except some members of the family.
Yeah.
So where do we start? How do we start, generally speaking?
I think so what we have to do to realize is that we talk about these portion sizes. If you speak to a dietitian, they will say, well, watch your portion sizes and then have a balanced diet and have, for example, less carbohydrates and more protein.
So we start planning now.
We start planning our food, which should be very healthy. And then, of course, in the current, there are lots of restrictions to go out for definite reasons, but you are allowed to go out for once daily for exercise as we speak. But I'm sure that, for the next 3 weeks or 4 weeks or maybe even longer, these restrictions will be in place. So it might, and then the Ramadan is going to kick off in less than a week's time.
Maybe next Friday, most likely.
Most likely. So at least you are allowed to go out for a walk. But then, mind you, praying 5 times is a lot of exercise, and if you wholeheartedly pray, that provides an opportunity to exercise and digest your food. So obviously, this lockdown is a very unprecedented and very difficult time for all of us, whether we are fasting or not fasting. And I would request all my younger friends that please look after your parents, your elders, your neighbors, as well as a spirit of Ramadan. So obviously, this lockdown definitely has physical as well as some mental stresses as well that come along with in these times.
So what you're saying is that people who have the physical illnesses like diabetes or blood pressure or a heart problem, and they can manage to fast, but however they might have some fears within their mind or heart. So what you're saying is the role of the carers is important, probably to make sure they should know how to access help from the GP or from the hospital if needed, and they also need to make sure that if they're taking regular tablets, so they should be the stock should be there.
Yeah.
So because these are the sort of general measures, this is how we start.
Yeah.
So would it be then correct to say that there's a week left now that all those people who have diabetes or a blood pressure or a heart problem or other, so their carers, or if the patients are fit enough to actually ring their surgeries or email, now email is very common, that in Ramadan, I don't want to have any shortage of medicine, can you please send my prescription? So would that be something with the GPs how do you think they will respond to that? And is it fair to say that first thing you do is make sure your medicines are stocked? Well, of course, along with food also, dates also, and your roti and chapati and chawal and everything.
Yeah. No, but I think it's a fair point, and I must say, and I must appreciate all these volunteers who are helping elderly population, and even the firefighters and medical students, and some other students have stepped in, and they are actually generally helping the population, the elderly population. And from Ramadan's point of view, I'm sure, the pharmacies, if you inform them, they will definitely keep your medication stock up to date, and hopefully nothing should go wrong. And I must say that now, suddenly, because of the fear of COVID-19, people are holding on to their homes, which is really good. But some of our patients, for example, who have been diagnosed with coronary artery disease in the past, are probably not exerting too much and not having too much angina, and they are staying at home. And so I must, I would like to share, with all those patients who have been diagnosed with heart disease, that if you feel any chest pain, or which you reckon is due to coronary artery disease or angina, then please do get in touch with Accident Emergency, because we are there to help along with our COVID-19 patients. Of course, the preference is given to COVID-19 patients these days. And I wish every patient all the best for Ramadan, and those patients who are diabetic, those patients who have COPD and some other major illnesses. So obviously fasting is only allowed for those who can fast. So
whose conditions are not very complicated and they are manageable.
They can manage. And if, for example, hypertension is very well controlled, generally speaking, the medications which we prescribe these days are long-acting, and they are once daily preparations. Some of the medications are like you have to take twice or thrice daily. So I'm sure you can request for slightly longer-acting medications.
So you mentioned about hypertension, which for the viewers it is, I'm sure they know, but it's a high blood pressure. Are you recommending that they should also check the blood pressure if they got a machine at home?
Well, I think most of the...
Because you can't go to the nurse now for a simple thing, and some people's blood pressure might fluctuate.
Yeah.
So would you recommend if they got a machine at home and the carers can check blood pressure, and if there's any alerts or red flags or signal, they can go back to the GP or hospital?
This is exactly what has to be done. I have been calling lots of patients who were supposed to come for outpatients appointments. And I was really surprised and was quite pleased that most of them mentioned that, well, I keep an eye on my blood pressure, and I have a machine at home, and they make sort of a very nice record of their heart rate and blood pressure. So I think it's a very good idea, because it gives the clinicians an opportunity to monitor and to optimize the medications if necessary. Okay. So definitely.
All right, coming to, because we will remain focused on these heart problem and diabetes, because in our communities these are certainly, I think, very common. Can you advise our viewers and listeners, if somebody has a diabetes and now they are not exercising as they used to be before, because many diabetics are working full time, many people with a heart problem are working full time. So in the lockdown, so they have a lot of limitations now. What might be the subtle signs which are not very obvious, which the family members or even the patients themselves need to be aware with the diabetes? And they're taking either oral anti-diabetics, metformin and things like that, or they may be on insulin. So what will be the dangerous signs when they need not to sit on them and actually seek help and not feel shy?
Yeah. I think you've raised a very important point again, just focusing on diabetic population now and diabetic patients. So nowadays, majority of the patients, obviously, we try to treat them with oral medication, but then...
Like tablets.
Like tablets. But then some of them, or maybe quite a few of them now, are taking insulin as well. And there are different forms of insulin. They are short-acting, intermediate-acting, and long-acting. And nowadays we have these insulins that can be given once weekly to ensure good sort of diabetic control. So it is okay to have maybe slightly elevated blood glucose levels than to have hypoglycemia, or hypos we call them. And
so you're saying the low sugar level is quite more dangerous than the high sugar level?
This is it. This is it. I'm not talking about really high levels, because then you will go into ketoacidosis, and then we have to,
which is a medical emergency.
It's an emergency, medical emergency, and then so then we will be looking at some complications of diabetes rather than just managing diabetes. So it is worse to have hypoglycemia.
Low blood sugar.
Low blood sugar.
What are the signs and symptoms which people need to be aware of?
You can feel lightheaded, you can feel faint, but it's very difficult sometimes to distinguish between going hypo, or whether it's a vasovagal response to something, or whether it's a side effect of one of the medicines that you're taking simultaneously for blood pressure as well. There can be like postural issues, or sometimes, strictly speaking, from cardiac perspective, patients can have arrhythmias, and that can so there is a bit of an overlap with these symptoms. But beware, if somebody is feeling a bit faint or lightheaded or feeling weak or lethargic, extremely lethargic.
Sweating also, palpitations.
And of course, sometimes if, for example, if somebody's having a heart attack while fasting, they may or may not feel chest pain. They may feel just chest tightness or get shortness of breath. So then, the family has to be a bit careful, or the people who are around those individuals. But if you're isolating, it can be a little bit tricky, or self-isolating.
Just like you said, we can monitor the blood pressure with the sphygmomanometer or the blood pressure apparatus. Is it also a good idea then to people monitor the blood glucose level?
Yeah, definitely, because, make a diary.
Because the nurse is not coming home now.
Yeah.
They're not going to the surgeries. Yeah. And they need to know what's happening. How often would you say they need to check if they got a blood testing, little needles, prick tests?
Those patients who are taking insulin, they usually check every day anyway, because they have to determine the amount of insulin that they have to inject. So if you are feeling well and you are happy and everything is fine, then maybe every 2-3 days it may not be a bad idea just to keep an eye. But of course, if you are not feeling well, then straight away check your blood glucose level. And then of course there is flexibility in our religion as well, that if you are unable to fast, then please don't fast. So health comes first. And actually, I take this opportunity to share something very important, the latest research or what is known about diabetes. It's very tricky that we recommend these oral tablets to the patients, and what happens that most of these tablets increase the production of insulin in our body.
Okay.
But the diabetes itself is actually, the type 2 diabetes I'm referring to, is because of this insulin not working, and we call it insulin resistance. So what happens, that simultaneously when we eat, our glucose levels go up, and then we take these oral tablets, then our insulin level goes up, which is actually not working and not converting this glucose to glycogen and fat eventually, as I just mentioned earlier. So Ramadan gives a good opportunity to the diabetes patients to reduce their weight, to tailor their diet very nicely. And once your weight, you reduce about 10% of your weight, then you may not require the same amount of oral tablets. And there are cases, and now we know that we can reverse this type 2 diabetes. And many patients say, well, is there a possibility that I can stop taking these medicines? So I very carefully inform them that yes, there is a possibility, but if you have a very strong lifestyle modification, diet modification, eat all the healthy stuff, and there is a possibility that you can actually be in charge of your own illness. So I think it's a good opportunity. Please, please, please tailor your diet, and go for once daily walk or an exercise, and pray 5 times inshallah. And I'm sure there will be a possibility. But then, just to extend on this, now we have some newer agents which are available. Some of them do not actually increase the insulin production, but they actually deal with this insulin resistance. But the problem is some of the patients do not tolerate those medicines. And now we have a newer group of anti-diabetics which are very good for the heart as well.
What are the group is gliptin?
No, it's not the gliptin, it's the gliflozins, like dapagliflozin or empagliflozin. There's wealth of information now, and we are recommending to those patients who have sort of not very good control of diabetes. So how we monitor diabetes actually is we look at the hemoglobin A1C, and we kind of sort of try to bring it down to in sort of normal range, if possible. So I repeat again that this is a good opportunity for the diabetic patients actually.
While you're more disciplined and you're fasting.
To bring more discipline.
Right, okay.
And try to beat diabetes.
Right, okay. On this, I have seen little bit, being a psychiatrist, but still a lot of cases people discuss, and I always refer to my medical friends. In our community, we find a lot of people And one of the time I discussed one case with you, and that's not the only case. The people are taking metformin for a long period of time. They have many gastrointestinal symptoms like, abdominal distension, maybe constipation, maybe other symptoms. And you were saying from your experience, if they have the problem for a long period of time, the research now shows that you can shift them to the newer type of medication.
That's right.
So would you advise, because I know there are many people in our community who are metformin for a long period of time, they have these symptoms and there is no treatment. They're taking Gaviscon, they're taking green tea or lemon or long or whatever it is, but still the symptoms are persisting. This is an important practical point. Can you please advise on this one?
Yeah, no, I think the general advice is because metformin should be taken in between your meal rather than after the meal or before meal. So then many individuals benefit from this slight. It's difficult because when you're eating, you don't want to keep on remembering this metformin all the time, and you will not enjoy that meal if it's really tasty. So I think, this could be one very simple solution for those individuals who do not like metformin, and they can actually just take in between the meal. But then on the other hand, there is one size does not fit all, one advice does not suit every individual. Again, you have to look into the broader picture. Broader picture, you know how the thyroid is functioning, whether you have heart disease or not, whether you know what are the other comorbidities, what is the overall health status. I think we have to be very careful in advising these individuals, what to do. And I can assure our viewers who are diabetic that yes, we have these newer medications available with lots of good data.
Okay. All right, so a few more problems which our community faces and linked with the Ramadan. So tell us two more things. I would like your advice. One is, if people have a heart problem and they want to fast, and of course they will keep their GTN spray, and our scholars, there are always two opinions. One group of scholars will allow the GTN spray if you're fasting and have angina, and similarly people who got a COPD or chronic obstructive airway disease, bronchial asthma, emphysema, and they're taking inhalers, and one group of scholars would allow the inhalers, other will not allow. But that's something they're personal, they can look at their own, whatever sort of, I think they are following, mazhab they are following. But from the medical point of view, people who have a heart disease and it's not complex and they're allowed to fast, what could be the subtle signs then the carers need to look into for a heart disease? And similarly, people have the bronchial asthma or more complex emphysema.
Yeah.
So if they're fasting and they have not taken their GTN spray, not taken their inhaler as they used to take in between, so what are the signs and symptoms which they need to be careful, and the carers and the family members need to be careful so that they can seek the right advice and not sort of let this increase in intensity and cause harm?
Yeah. So I think let's take the most important is heart, of course. I'm a cardiologist, I'll start talking about heart first. So if you have already been diagnosed with coronary artery disease and you have history of stents in one or two or three of vessels, and or if you have previous bypass surgery, then you're diabetic, then you have hypertension and high blood cholesterol as well in the background. So your history is quite complex and very important. So I think these patients have gone through quite a lot in their life, and they can actually recognize if something is not right. And they might have experienced angina once or twice in their life, and they might have used GTN. So it is easy for that particular group of patients who have actually experienced these symptoms, prior to this Ramadan. So they actually will be probably in a better position to take care of themselves. And then GTN spray can be used, and then of course the symptoms, I repeat again, can be slight chest discomfort, you can feel faint, you can have shortness of breath whilst walking few steps, you can feel cold and clammy if you're getting a heart attack, and you may feel actually generally unwell. So there is a lot of overlap. So I said earlier that whether it's because of hypoglycemia or because of angina, or there can be overlap if you're diabetic. So one should be very careful and should seek for...
Should they call 999 for that?
Absolutely, and there's no point in waiting.
For somebody who doesn't have a diabetes and they got a heart problem diagnosed, so these symptoms, they should call 999.
Absolutely, and then the other group can be who were probably not aware of any heart disease in the being diagnosed in the past, never had any angiogram, CT angiogram, or any functional assessment of their heart. So I think that group, sometimes they can be quite apprehensive. Some of the individuals have a lot of stress, and it's actually good to have a little bit of stress to think about your symptoms. So that is a useful stress, rather than to be careless and not to consider those subtle signs and then get into deeper trouble.
So what you're saying is there's an opportunity for the carers and the families to actually educate themselves voluntarily, not by force, to know about their loved ones. It could be their parents or grandparents or uncles and aunts that they have illness. So right now, this has got an opportunity to actually learn about the symptoms. And that will be your message, I think, and my message also.
And one very important thing in relation to Ramadan is because in the morning in our suhoor, some of us try to eat a lot, and then we get a lot of gastric upsets, and we start getting heartburns. So heartburn can sometimes be very deceiving.
And can mimic the symptoms of heart.
It can mimic the symptoms of a heart attack. And similarly, what happens, the good thing about, you asked, the beneficial effects of Ramadan on our body, our stomach shrinks throughout the day. And you may have seen many of our friends and family, they say, well, I don't feel like eating now, and they break the fast. Why? Because the stomach has shrunk now. It has changed its habits.
And your body is all conditioned.
And it's now, so the whole scenario is changing. And the hormone surges are different now. So I think it's again an opportunity to persist and to try to rationalize your calories and eat very sensibly. And if obviously someone has gastric ulcers or gastritis, and that's a different story, and then of course you have to take some proton pump inhibitors or some antacids or whatever they might already be taking. So please, 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 I say again, if there is these very strange symptoms of heartburn which you have never experienced before, but don't be obsessed that, well, if you get heartburn, it's definitely going to be a heart attack. So
it's only if you got an underlying condition.
Just to alarm yourself, and that's what I would say. And then I take this opportunity actually to share very important information which I have been asked in relation to this Covid-19. Those individuals who are taking ACE inhibitors and angiotensin II blockers, they were told, well,
yes, like enalapril, captopril, things like that,
and irbesartans and losartan, stuff like that. So those drugs are not good in this current atmosphere. That's what the information has been floating around, because this COVID-19 virus can actually be facilitated. There is a vehicle in our lungs, this angiotensin converting enzyme, which gives this ACE cough as well. So that sort of mechanism in our lungs can be very useful for this virus to attack. But then the European Society of Cardiology and other main organizations refuted these claims, and they said,
there's no definitive.
There's no definite, and actually, if at all, they might be very helpful.
Right, okay.
And then,
so people don't need to change their medication, whether they're taking losartan or another. They should continue.
They should.
And not sort of worried about the original news which came about a couple of months ago.
Absolutely.
Okay. Same with the brufen.
Absolutely. And brufen as well.
Okay.
So that was also...
So they should continue as it is.
They should continue, because there is no strong data and evidence. And the second part of your question was COPD.
Now let's talk about the chest infections, asthmas.
Yeah.
So if people want to fast, so what are the subtle signs they need to be careful?
Yeah.
And what are the advice?
Yeah, absolutely. So now COPD is, of course, a condition when some of those individuals who suffer from this might have been smokers in their life, and they have caused permanent damage to the lungs, and which is
they've caused
irreversible. Absolutely. And now they have what they have, and they have to survive with the remaining part of their lungs, which is probably what they are doing. So again, Ramadan brings an opportunity. If you are an overweight person or obese, reducing weight can be very beneficial. There are some studies done which prove that when you reduce weight, the vital capacity, your forced expiratory volume, the markers which are our markers of success of our treatment for, we measure the success of our treatment by looking at the vital capacities and looking at the lung functions. So lung functions improve during Ramadan, if only in those who manage to reduce some weight.
Subhanallah. So you're saying this is already,
this is
yeah, so forced expiratory volume, FEV1, so it improves.
Yes.
And could it be due to that you're more spiritually relaxed?
Absolutely.
And also you're not smoking?
Absolutely. And so this is, for smokers, it's again a good opportunity to stop smoking. I think this is the worst you can do to your body. Smoking kills, everybody knows. We have these smoking cessation clinics, we have a lot of help. I think these Ramadan brings lots of blessings, physical and mental, and then of course it's kind of a period of overhauling your body. And I said earlier, it's like spring cleaning your systems.
Like sort of all types of physical, spiritual, psychological MOTs being done.
Absolutely.
And nicotine replacement therapies are available, like patches and the chewing gums. And Ramadan is the best time. I would not sort of encourage anybody to go for the vapes. People are using vape as an alternative, but these nicotine replacement, the patches, nicotine, their 21-day treatment is working very fine.
Absolutely.
Okay, that's very kind of you, Dr. Nabeel. What I'll do now is we have discussed our Ramadan and few other things. I'm not sure if there are any questions. There aren't any questions because I'm looking at WhatsApp, because if there are any questions, then the IT person will certainly inform us. Now I just want to quickly mention to our viewers and listeners regarding the Islamic principles. Very simple and basic, and I don't think anybody doesn't know. Most people know that. Once you finish that, then you've got two tasks to do. Shall I tell you what they are?
Yeah, sure.
One is, I will request you to summarize in English what you have said. And secondly and lastly, I'll request you to summarize everything in Urdu at the same time.
Yeah, I'll try my best anyway. So
your Urdu is very good, I know that, so I'm sure you'll be able to do that.
Yeah.
So let me go through the Islamic perspective.
Yeah.
Look, regarding food, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in Quran has not missed anything. There are two fundamental principles. If we want to survive, the ethnic minorities, the Muslims in the West, and also because the Covid-19 is attacking more the ethnic minorities, 70% in America, and same percentage, 60 to 70% in Europe. Other Europe, I do not know, but in the UK, certainly, there are a lot of people who are from Muslim background, from the brown background, from the Asian background, and for Afro-Caribbeans. Quran mentions one of the greatest principles of good health. And I just want to remind my viewers, and one of the principle is actually I'll call this is the principle to improve your immunity. There is at least 4 times in the Quran Allah mentions that when the eating or the food is required, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions 2 things together. One is halalan tayyiban. So it is not only halal that we are happy to buy our chicken injected with the water and steroids and chemicals and it might cause high blood pressure, might cause psychological symptoms, might cause other gastrointestinal symptoms. Allah says, tayyiban. So the first principle, Quran and Allah says, halal is, you already know that, what you are not going to eat, which is haram, but halal you eat, but it has to be tayyib. So tayyib means wholesome food. Tayyib means which is clean, pure, natural, unrefined, raw. Okay? We should not be overwhelmed or deceived or even impressed by the word organic food, which is 3 times more expensive. Because what God, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, has created the natural thing which comes from the planet Earth without the fertilizers, that is the best thing. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you should eat halal and tayyiban. And Allah also, in one of the verses, instructed the prophets that you also need to eat and demonstrate halal and tayyiban. I'll give you one example. Allah says, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ حَلَالًا طَيِّبًا وَاشْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ إِن كُنتُمْ إِيَّاهَ تَعْبُدُونَ. This is in Surah Nahl, verse number 114, that you eat, فَكُلُوا مِمَّا رَزَقَكُمُ اللَّهُ, what Allah has already given you as your provision, but be selective. And in your selection, it's not only halal, it is also tayyib, and tayyib is to improve your immunity, because we are being content. And then Allah said, وَاشْكُرُوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ, then you also need to do the shukr of Allah. And in kuntum iya ta'budun, do you claim that you worship Allah? If you worship Allah and claim you are a believer, then now from today, this COVID-19, the biggest lesson, one of the biggest lessons for us is actually to improve our physical health. And I'm not saying don't improve your spiritual or psychological health. So, tayyib is the most important thing, and that we need to eat the wholesome food. Unwholesome food is the one which is processed food, which is the fast food. And we need to remind ourselves, I have reminded many times, the refined food, the refined sugar, the refined wheat, the refined cereals are absolute disaster in the long term. I'm not saying that it's going to cause some problem. It's not only you will have a dental problem, you will have also other problems, behavior problems. And these refined foods and the processed food is, you know very well, they're linked with cancer, they're linked with diabetes, they're linked with heart disease, they're linked with many other behavior problems in children, and especially ADHD and allergies and infections. So the first principle Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives us is the halalan tayyiban. Do not insist on halal. Please, my brothers, my sisters, and my younger brother, Dr. Nabeel, Allah did not say halal. Halal is true. Tayyib means wholesome, natural, raw, unrefined.
Yeah, that's a very good point.
Yeah. So the second principle Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives is, which actually will reduce the toxicity. So this is the principle, the first one. If we have the natural food, and also the research has been done in America over a period of many decades, once people start eating the processed food or fast food for a period of years and years, when you give them the wholesome natural food, they would not like it. Because their taste buds, their smell, and their hypothalamic pituitary, all that system, all the enzymes and the neurotransmitter system actually is only recognize what you are feeding them. So it's really important that we go back to the natural, original food and try. It will be a hard work to grow some vegetables in your garden now, but I think look at the labels and move and shift from after COVID-19 to tayyib food in addition to halal. The second thing Allah said, you reduce the toxicity. I call the first principle of increasing your immunity, and the second principle of the Quran is, so far do you disagree with anything?
No.
Okay.
This is perfect actually. This is what we recommend these days.
Yeah. So the second principle Allah says is وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا, that you eat and you drink. Allah is not putting any restriction. Of course, in the previous verses, must be halal and tayyib. وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا. So إِنَّهُ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. And don't do the israf. I'll explain what it means. Allah does not like those people who are israf. This verse is actually the verse to reduce the toxicity. Allah says you eat and drink, but do not transgress. And what sort of transgression is that? Of many types. One is either we overindulge and eat too much. That will overload your system and increase the toxicity. And even if you give your body, which is amana or a trust from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if you don't eat, if you're eating too less and going on extreme kind of diets, that is also israf.
Yeah. So
it brings you back to moderation. It brings you back to modesty. It also is congruent and agreeable with the Prophet ﷺ's one of the most famous hadiths mentioned in Tibb Nabwi, that your stomach, you should leave, it should be, when you eat, it should be 3 parts.
yeah, this is it. I mean, this is very...
The solid 1/3, the liquid and other is for air, which means that don't overindulge. Yeah. So this hadith actually explains and feeds into this verse which is mentioned in Surah Al-Araf, verse number 31, وَكُلُوا وَاشْرَبُوا. You eat and drink, O my servants. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that, وَلَا تُسْرِفُوا إِنَّ لَا يُحِبُّ الْمُسْرِفِينَ. So my message is, before we go to the summary in English and summary in Urdu, that Muslims out of the COVID-19, what they need to do is, these 2 principles are the greatest principle of health. Tayyiban, halal and tayyiban will increase your immunity. I don't have a time, I can do the whole talk on that. Yeah. And number 2, wala tusrifu, don't overindulge in food. Yeah. Don't sort of have that problem of gluttony, you see. Yeah, I think. And if we follow that, it will reduce the toxicity in our body, and it will also give a rest, as you mentioned earlier, to the liver and our spleen and our kidneys and our stomachs, and our bodies will be healthy. So Muslims, and in fact I would say the all people can learn a lesson from COVID-19, and for Ramadan is the month of reflection, month of sabr and patience, yeah? And it's also a month of Quran, we know that to improve your immunity based on these principles. Switch to wholesome food, this will reduce the toxicity. Pay attention to your education, because the education will help you to understand all dimensions of the issues and the problems in the world. And then all of us, we work towards the immunity, and economic strength of the Muslims is important, and the trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So everything is linked actually. Our survival of our nations in future after this pandemic, whether some people say it's real or whether it's man-made or whatever the case may be, if we really want to survive in future in our generations, it is our health has to be prioritized. Our immunity has to be prioritized. So Dr. Nabeel, I've taken your time to explain the Quranic and Islamic view of these 2 greatest principles of health, halal and tayyiban, and wala tusrifu, only eat in moderation. Now, can I please request you? Yeah. We have certainly about 10 minutes maximum. Yeah. You please summarize whatever you have said and informed and advised our viewers and listeners about Ramadan and lockdown regarding the diabetes, just the bullet points, and then the same thing in Urdu.
Yeah, I'll try my best anyway.
And for Urdu, I'll give you some marks, private. Over to you now.
Yeah, sure. And thank you very much for wonderful examples from the Holy Quran and Hadith. And I must say, well, moderation. For every human being in this world, it should be a message for everyone that, look, moderation in life is a golden principle. So moderation in your happiness, moderation in everything in your life, and especially in your eating, when we are strictly speaking about Ramadan, then if you want, so it brings lots of benefits. I'm really grateful, for your sharing of very important verses from the Holy Quran in relation to moderation. So, to summarize, I think today this was an endeavor to actually start preparing mentally for Ramadan. Okay. In the current sort of environment of COVID-19, which has actually changed the whole world, and many people are saying that it will be a different world pre-COVID and post-COVID, and whether we have learned very important lessons that how human beings have to think forward, and what were the more important things in our life which we never paid attention to. So I must say that, well, we have discussed the physical and so some of the mental and spiritual benefits of Ramadan. And so I must say, well, if you have any health problems like diabetes or heart disease or hypertension or asthma or COPD or God forbid, if, many other serious illnesses, then please look after yourself, take your medicines regularly, take the longer acting preparations if you want to fast, and if you experience any subtle signs of a heart attack or any threat to your overall health, then take it seriously and seek help. Don't be scared to go to the hospital because of this COVID-19. I'm sure there is a lot of help available. And from religious perspective also, if you are unable to continue with the fast, then by all means you have to break and look after your health first. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has definitely allowed fasting only for those who are healthy and who can actually are able to fast. And then I have also tried to share some of our experiences about some wrong misconceptions about various drugs, for example, the ACE inhibitors, and we have discussed about hydroxychloroquine, and we have actually, I have informed all my viewers, and I'm just sort of reminding that yes, there are lots of trials ongoing now, and very soon we will have more data. Very soon we may have a vaccine to deal with this deadly virus, and I wish you all the best in all honesty and looking forward to a great Ramadan.
Thank you very much. And obviously, in your summary in English, and the carers are the one who have extra responsibility.
Yeah.
So, Dr. Nabeel, that's very kind of you. Jazakallah khairan. अभी चूंकि हमारे जो सारे जो व्यूअर्स हैं वो most of them, if not all of them, वो उर्दू स्पीकिंग भी हैं, तो मैं समझ रहा हूँ कि इस मौके से फ़ायदा उठाया जाए. तो जो कुछ भी आपने जो भी एडवाइस दी हैं और जो कुछ बातें जो मोटी मोटी जो की हैं लॉकडाउन में और रमज़ान के बारे में, हार्ट के बारे में, तो प्लीज़ हमें उर्दू में भी इसका खुलासा ज़रा दे दीजिएगा.
हाँ जी, नहीं क्यों नहीं. देखिए, जो सबसे पहले तो सब लोग बड़ी बेचैनी से रमज़ान का इंतज़ार करते हैं. तो रमज़ान जो है वो सिर्फ वो 30 डेज़ जिसकी बात हो रही है वो तो रखनी है हमने, जो फ़र्ज़ है हम पे. लेकिन देखिए, साइंस ने हमें ये भी सिखाया है और बताया है कि देखिए, जो इंटरमिटेंट फास्टिंग होती है, जो जैसे हुज़ूर सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि वसल्लम बीच बीच में रोज़े रखते थे, और I think 14th or 15th of dates of every month, कहीं ये भी मैंने सुना है कि वो ख़ास तौर पे उनमें रोज़े रखते थे, और फिर ये कि मंडे को और थर्सडे को भी वो रोज़ा रखने की कोशिश करते थे. तो देखें, जो इंटरमिटेंट फास्टिंग है उसके बहुत सारे फ़वाइद हैं. तो जो अब से 1 घंटा ऑलमोस्ट हो गया हमें ये सारी बातें डिस्कस करते हुए, तो मेरी ये गुजारिश है कि देखें, ये कोविड-19 का ज़माना है और इससे सारे डरे हुए हैं और इसने बहुत खौफ व हिरास फैलाया हुआ है. और देखें, ये सोशल डिस्टेंसिंग जिसकी बात सब लोग करते हैं उसको फॉलो करें. आपके जो घरों में बुज़ुर्ग हैं, बड़े हैं, उनका ख्याल रखें. ख़ास तौर पे जब आप बाहर जाएं तो पूरी एहतियात करें. जब वापस घर आएँ तो पूरी एहतियात करें. और जब रमज़ान शुरू हो तो उसमें फिर ये कि एक बैलेंस्ड डाइट, एक मॉडरेशन वाली अप्रोच रखें ज़िंदगी में. और लो कार्ब डाइट की बात बहुत होती है, उसको ज़रा मद्देनज़र रखें. और बहुत ज़्यादा एक टाइम पे ना खाएं. एक बिल्कुल मुनासिब अपनी जो डाइट है वो रखें. और अगर आपको कोई बीमारी है, जिस तरह कोई ब्लड प्रेशर है या डायबिटीज़ है या हार्ट डिजीज़ है, तो प्लीज़ अपना ज़्यादा ख्याल रखें. अपनी मेडिसिन का स्टॉक पूरा रखें और वो टाइम पे खाएं. वो सुबह सहूर में और फिर अफ्तार में वो मेडिसिन ज़रूर ले लें. अगर आपकी हेल्थ इजाज़त देती है तो फिर रोज़े कंटिन्यू करें, नहीं तो फिर अल्लाह गफूर रहीम है, वो बेनियाज है। इसके बहुत और तरीके हैं, वो डॉक्टर ज़ुबैर बहुत अच्छे तरीके से उस पर रोशनी डाल सकते हैं। और ये कि बिल्कुल घबराए नहीं आप, रमज़ान इंशाल्लाह गुजर जाएगा, आप अलाउड हैं एक दफ़ा बाहर जाके वॉक करके आएँ, 5 वक्त नमाज पढ़ें, दुआओं में सबको याद रखें, पूरी इंसानियत के लिए, पूरे दुनिया के इंसानों के लिए दुआ करें। और ये एक ऐसी सिचुएशन है जिसको अंग्रेज़ी में अनप्रेसिडेंटेड कहते हैं, जिसकी कोई नज़ीर नहीं मिलती। पहले कोई ऐसी मिसाल नहीं है दुनिया की तारीख़ में कि हर इंसान इस वक्त जो है वो इस सोच में मुब्तला है, उसको जान के लाले पड़े हुए हैं। वो एक दूसरे से हमें दूर कर दिया है इस कोविड-19 ने, बट एक लिहाज से हमें एक दूसरे के करीब भी कर दिया है। तो मेरा ये ख्याल है कि मैं अपने ये जो सारे ख्यालात हैं आपसे शेयर कर रहा हूँ कि प्लीज़ अपना ख्याल रखें, अपनी फैमिली का ख्याल रखें, अपनी एक्सटेंडेड फैमिली का ख्याल रखें। आप, ये मीडिया का ज़माना है, तो मेरा ख्याल आई एम रनिंग आउट ऑफ वर्ड्स, क्योंकि आप माशाल्लाह सब लोगों के पास इतना इल्म है आजकल, इतनी इंफॉर्मेशन है मीडिया में, क्या करना है क्या नहीं करना है। तो बस मेरी तो सबके लिए दुआ है कि जो रोज़े रखना चाहते हैं अल्लाह उनको हिम्मत दे।
बहुत अच्छा, बहुत शुक्रिया डॉक्टर साहब। तो मैं इसको कंक्लूड करता हूँ कि और जो बातें आपने पहले कहीं, तो वो समरी में ये भी है कि अगर किसी को कोई परेशानी तकलीफ़ है तो वो चुप करके बैठे नहीं, अपने तकलीफ़ को शेयर करें और अपने जो फैमिली मेम्बर्स हैं या केयरर्स जो हैं, जो हेल्दी लोग हैं, उसको उनको बताएं। तो मैं so I will just sort of conclude and finish now, but I just want to give you one little thought. Everybody remembers Surah Al-Kahf, number 18, and people usually recite on Friday because it is recommended by our Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And there's many stories within that. And one of the stories is that when these young people, we call them sort of ashab kahf, the companions or people who actually were in the cave, and they woke up after 307 or 9 years.
That's right. Yeah.
Whatever the case may be, Allah knows best. And they woke up, and you know what did they do first? It is amazing. So they're asking each other a question, how long we have lived or slept. And they said, maybe a day, maybe half a day, maybe an hour, and nobody. And somebody said, look, keep quiet. Allah knows best. And now they were hungry.
Yeah.
And what happened? So this is in this verse, very interesting thing is mentioned about takeaway.
Yeah.
So they said, فَبَعَثُوا أَحَدَكُمْ بِبَرَكِكُمْ هَذِهِ لَلْمَدِينَةِ فَلْيَنْظُرْ أَيُّهَا أَزْكَى فَلْيَأْتِكُمْ بِرِزْقٍ مِّنْهُ وَلَا يَتَلَطَّفْ وَلَا يُشْعِرَنَّ بِكُمْ أَحَدًا. And one of them said, okay, send somebody, and they got a silver coin, what are the money at that time, and let this person go in the city, al-Madina, and then what he does that? Ayyuha azka ta'ama. Let him bring the food to eat, which is pure and clean. Yeah. So the another word for halal and tayyiban is azka, which is the purified food, and he needs to be careful because they were frightened, because they were persecuted. They said you need to be careful. Lattaf means you need to be very cautious, very subtle. Don't sort of seek attention of people and make sure nobody knows where do you come from.
That's right.
So that was the first takeaway. So halal takeaway.
Yeah.
So takeaway food is allowed.
Yeah.
But the conditions attached are in this verse. What are these? In Surah Al-Kahf, verse number 19, is that you have your own money, which is halal.
Yeah.
You go and make an effort to actually find the food which is wholesome. Azka ta'ama in this one, which is purified, which is halalan and tayyiban. And that is, I would say, an extremely fantastic example in the Quran that regarding the food. So they woke up after 300 years and they're still remembering Allah. They're still saying, Wallahu alam. Allah knows best how long we are. And they're still so careful about the food. This is a sign of a true believer. that when you eat your food, so please, we need, as Dr. Nabeel has reminded, and I'm sort of endorsing that, we need to be very careful about our food, not just for now, because Ramadan is coming and the COVID-19 we have locked down, it is for rest of life and the future generations.
Yeah, absolutely.
So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabbul Alameen, whatever we have discussed today, we are human beings, myself and Dr. Nabeel. If we have said something good and it's beneficial, so may Allah help and reward and allow you to benefit from that information. Yeah. If we have said something which is incorrect, which is based on our lack of knowledge and understanding, so please forgive us when we ask Allah's forgiveness. But our intention is to only sort of share the knowledge and give advice and remind people what is good for you.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So and that's what Prophet taught us. You see, Allah nas'aluka ilman nafi'an wa rizqan tayyiban wa amalan mutaqabbala. It is one of the most commonest dua, that in this dua also Prophet ﷺ is saying, fine, Ya Allah, give me the ilm, the knowledge which is good, but rizqan tayyiban, give me the provisions which also includes the food and the money and everything which is halalan and tayyiban and clean. So we pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Rabbal Alamin, accept it and help all our Muslim brothers and sisters who are fasting. And Ya Allah, help them and make this month easy for them. Make this month of Quran for them. Make this month of patience for them. And may Allah give shifa and the cure to all those people who are suffering. And give also cure and shifa all people who are suffering not only physically but also financially and psychologically and spiritually and otherwise. And once again I pray for my guest Dr. Nabeel and for you and your family. May Allah bless you and your family and give you more knowledge and enable you to sort of share all this advice, good advice with people where it's needed. And I'm also grateful to the people who are organizing that in the masjid, and our young team and our IT consultants and also the trustees. May Allah reward all of them. So please look after yourself and may this Ramadan be the best Ramadan. Subhana rabbika rabbil izzati ma yasifun wa salamun al mursaleen. Alhamdulillah rabbil alameen bi rahmatika ya arhamar rahimin.